takes time to develop, to change the minds of those who sign off on the e-learning courses. Uh, that's a real delicate diplomatic way to say, um, instructional designers have design battles to fight in their organizations sometimes, where people are used to seeing in instructor-led training, facilitator guides and the instructor up front. So when it comes to e-learning, they still see that book online, that linear book online. So it takes time. But there are instructional designers perhaps in our audience this morning who are with open-minded creative organizations, and they get to be as creative as they want to be within the learning methodologies that are at our disposal. Phew, how was that for a political answer?
That was good. Um, and I'm not so political, so I can actually get worse about this. But
Oh no.
I think you're right. A lot of it is the organization, the management, how they perceive e-learning. And Terrence and I have talked about this. A lot of people have. A lot of companies do training not because they want to; it's because they have to. So as a result, they don't care if it's good or bad. They just need to do it for compliance or whatever other reason. And that creates that kind of, we're not going to put anything good out. We're just going to put something that makes the management happy so that compliance is met. We are, doing what we're supposed to do, and life is good. The problem is, are people really learning from that?
Right, and that's where I encourage instructional designers. I know we're passionate about what we do. We really love it. Our work is fun. Is to go ahead and use your free time. Let's say you've completed a compliance course for your organization and it's pretty cut and dry. It really does help to use your free time, nights, weekends, of course, work around your family, your loved ones, so they don't feel neglected.
Are you
But
saying that a
but
compliance course can be dry?
compliance dry, yeah, is to take that course, perhaps, let's say if there's three topics, take one topic and use your personal time to redesign it the way that if you had been given a blank check for effective learning, go ahead and recreate it, whatever your favorite e-learning tool is, and then you can, in a safe, non-combative way, present it to management and just say, hey, I just want to show you how things can work. I have seen that happen. Some organizations change more quickly than others. It takes time. It takes diplomacy. It takes showing samples. And when they do see that you create those samples on your own time, they know that you have a commitment to your organization, that you want to make learning better each year, each time a course comes out. And if they don't listen to you, you polish up your resume and go find a new job. I'm kidding.
Well, maybe not today.
No, I know.
Yeah, there's a lot of
But there are creative organizations out there.
there are
And
there are
yeah.
one of the problems with creativity is many times, and Terrence is a good example of proving this wrong. Many times there's the illusion of creativity being extremely expensive, and it doesn't have to be. In fact, that kind of brings up what Terrence has been crusading against, which is the destruction of all vendors who charge too much for avatars. So, Terrence, talk a little bit to us about how you can make creative e-learning not that expensive.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the character of the e-learning designer, where if you've kind of matured in an environment where you've had a big budget, you've never really been forced to find these corners to cut to make it happen. But for those of us who have worked in environments where you had to make PowerPoint look like Flash, then you find ways of meeting that demand, that client demand, and not using any additional financial resources in order to do it. And I know you got a real kick out of the avatar that I built, where you could spend upwards of $10,000 on a avatar building program, and the avatars they're okay. I mean, when you look at the leader in that category, their avatars. I won't use any names, but their avatars, they're cute, but they're a little awkward looking. They're not as realistic as they could be. So in that particular case, I went into Second Life. I set up a virtual green screen and I shot an avatar, a Second Life avatar, which are very dynamic looking avatars, and shot that in front of a green screen, imported it into an e-learning course, and now I have an avatar for free instead of spending $10,000 on it. So there's a lot of great tools out there that help us meet the learning goals that we want to meet without breaking our budget or even impacting our budget at all.
And keeping the training pretty interesting at the same time.
Absolutely.
One thing that a lot of people don't like to use, and or actually they like to use it, but they're afraid of it, and that's video. And video is not as expensive as people think. In fact, a lot of times video is more cost effective than actually doing a ton of graphic arts and everything else, because video is more dynamic and fluid, and you can film just about anywhere, any place, anytime, and you can go green screen, you can go non-green screen. It requires a little bit of knowledge, but you can do a lot of that without having to spend a fortune. If you think about courses, if you can bring video into it or avatars or anything else to liven it up a little bit, it'll definitely make it more interesting.
It does, and even if I can add on, for those who
agree
have
100%.
really limited budgets where you can't purchase photos, so you want to use photos of employees. We had situations where the legal department and human resources said, nope, you can't use photos of actual employees.
Because then
Obviously
they'd have
for
to
the
pay
reason
them
is,
after that,
what if
right?
they're no longer with the company? So just on a lark, we threw something out there thinking, okay, they're not going to be open to this idea either. Is the idea we proposed, and it was accepted, was to use the look with web comics, and we were amazed. The way we designed it, the background, it was very professional but fun, and it created a sense of engagement that became pretty popular. So don't rule out web comics either.
No, and actually they're effective,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people like comics, and they can get used to the comic paradigm, and sometimes they can be really funny.
Yeah.
Oh, humor in pieces. That's another thing that can add creativity to it. So you have to be careful what kind of humor, but you can add a little bit of something that maybe to a corporation might be funny. I mean,
Right.
if you're doing if you're doing generalized e-learning, that probably wouldn't work. But if you're doing, or let's say to the overall public, because everybody's got so many sensitivities, we're all very sensitive now. But if am I getting politically incorrect again?
Well, and that's where a person's, let's say they're in the private sector or even public sector, your human resources representative. I have 12 plus years experience in HR and human resources in the United States. So befriend your HR people. There are nice people in human resources and run the script by them. You have the attorneys, and they're one group to deal with, but in human resources, they can sometimes override the legal department and help you develop dialogue with humor that's appropriate for your organization. I've found that they're very helpful. Having been a human resources person.
So what are you saying? You're a little biased then?
No, because I've also bumped heads with my HR colleagues.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you've worked in that field, you're allowed to do that because you understand each other. But there truly are things in terms of, Rick had mentioned sensitivities, that we found even when we had the budget to use photos, that gestures with hands had to not use certain photos with certain hand gestures, because if you had a global organization in another culture, what we in the United States thinks is a real simple, like thumbs up gesture or the okay with your fingers, in other countries would be offensive. So
Yes, the okay, I actually ran into that one once. The okay actually symbolizes that you are part of a posterior, which is not very good for some people. And
Right.
I'm saying, okay, this is great, and I'm getting back, why do you think I'm a and it was not good.
A bleep bleep.
Yes, a bleep bleep. Yes.
Well, Jenise, it looks like too that you're we've known each other for I guess a couple of years now, and I've noticed that recently you've really sort of upped your game with social media, and in particular with Twitter, where I've seen you um, really have a focused, uh, I guess, strategy for tweeting tips on instructional design or tips on career development. But I can really get a sense that your Twitter is almost a specific channel with a specific goal in mind. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you try to accomplish with your social media presence.
Well, my Twitter addiction is, pretty soon going to be addressed in a 12-step group. Um, Actually, about a year or so ago, I was completely adverse to the idea of using Twitter. I had a presence on LinkedIn and very, very happy with LinkedIn. I still use it, and didn't have a presence on Facebook. And some colleagues were encouraging me, and I looked at their Twitter feeds and they were tweeting about which cafe they'd been to, which coffee they were having at Starbucks. And I said, this is ridiculous. It's a waste of time. What's Twitter worth? And especially when you saw celebrities, what's his name, Ashton Kutcher and some others. I don't follow Hollywood, but I thought people were just wasting time on Twitter until I finally signed up and got an account and did a search on the words e-learning or learning, training, and whoa, there was this huge audience out there of our colleagues, our instructional design and human performance improvement, workplace performance improvement professionals. And I started following their tweets before I actually began to participate and collaborate. And yeah, you're right, Terrence. I call it my Twitter addiction. But really, it is a fantastic tool. I still like to blog, but I think Twitter is better than blogging for that immediate contact with our colleagues and immediate feedback, that collaboration sharing. I have seen people have many situations or issues resolved through Twitter. They tweet whatever their issue is. Let's say it's with an e-learning course, they need some ideas, or there's a technical issue they need resolved. And instant feedback instead of having to wait anywhere from 24 to 72 hours to get a response back from anybody. So yeah, I'm addicted. I love Twitter.
Now, how has it helped you in regards to instructional design?
People have tweeted ideas that thankfully, and this is where I think Twitter truly has a value, and blogging still matters, is connect the two, is that I will follow someone's tweet where they will have a link to their blog post regarding a particular instructional design. Let's say webcomics, for example. I can't think of a particular colleague's name, but they tweeted on Twitter, hey, here's my blog post about using webcomics effectively in e-learning. And you click the URL and you go from 140 characters to whatever they wrote, let's say 250 words in their blog post with links to other resources. So that's how it has helped me. General articles, ASTD, the e-learning guild, ISPI, some of our colleagues who've been in the instructional design world for decades definitely share their expertise through Twitter with links to their blog post. So it's like having this online library readily accessible. And I can always go back through my Twitter stream. I click favorites if there's particular articles that I want to make sure that I can easily get to. I indicate it as a favorite. So here I was, a person thinking Twitter was only used to tell people which Starbucks you were at and what kind of coffee you were drinking, to a very valuable resource. In fact, Rick, I think, isn't that how you and I first got in contact? I think it was through Twitter.
We actually met through Twitter. You were posting something, and I contacted you to find out where you were and what kind of work you did, and subsequently we worked together. So
Yes.
that was through Twitter. I met Terrence